Hey there. So, one of the great things about being in a state of openness is you get to understand many great things, not necessarily things that you've previously taken for granted, but it could be things that you never really thought of or you were never open to think of in a greater sense. Things like dreams. Dreams actually have always been something that has intrigued me. It's not something that's new. Dreams date back, really, I would think that to the beginning of time. And as we look in history, we look at things like religious texts and we look back at different written pieces of work. Um, and we see dreams are definitely a part of what has both been a delight and it also has been like a source of mystery for many. It's something definitely worthy of looking into. There's many things that we can gain from dreaming. Many things that would come from taking a closer look at what dreams are and how they benefit us. You know, just a few of the things that I've definitely been able to absorb from a few sources that I've looked into on how dreams are significant when we talk about our life path overall. So, dreams can definitely give us insight on personal unfolding and that growth that we're expecting in life. And it brings information in around different areas, especially things that we may not necessarily understand. We may be able to gain some type of insight through our dreams. Definitely when it comes to like things like health, things that are health related. I personally have had many dreams around health, not only my own health, but even dreams relating to the health of those that are connected to me. And sometimes people that I'm not even aware of, people that I don't even know, that I would later come into contact with. I've received information around the health of people in that way. And so many times dreams are able to give us like indications or information around health. Sometimes it's how we need to improve the health of our situation or our bodies. Sometimes it's a warning or a revealing of some type of issue that might need to be given more attention to. Dreams can also facilitate spiritual guidance as well. There's definitely a spiritual aspect to dreaming as we think about it, right? Dreams are very spiritual, and there's a level of guidance that can be given while we're in the dream state. And the thing about dreaming is that it's not linear, right? So it's not restricted to the physical realm and the laws of reality, right? We may even have visits from loved ones that, come to us in dreams. It's amazing. And we may have visits also from animals, that we've had some type of connection to in this lifetime. And so it's very interesting. And these spirits, we'll call them spirits, those that have passed on. Animals can come to us while we're asleep and they can communicate with us. Now, our guides can also show up in our dreams to give us information and to guide us in any way that we might be needing at any point in time. There's a level of psychic and intuitive information that actually comes through dreams as well. And that again could be through like a warning about a future event or something that needs our attention in some type of way. It could also be about guiding us into the right direction overall as well. There's no area that's off limits when it comes to dreams, right? And we'll talk a little bit more in detail about those ways in a moment here, but these levels of spiritual guidance could also be coming in to accelerate our spiritual growth or unfolding as we know it. Another area is problem solving. Again, when we're dreaming, there's a state of being where we're unconscious. And while we're in that unconsciousness, because we are freed from the restrictions that the physical realm impose on our situation, there's a level of, and then also not just the physical realm, it could also be the psychological, the emotional, the spiritual restrictions posed on us in the physical realm. It's when we're dreaming that we're freed from those restrictions, if that makes sense. And being in the dream state may actually allow us to work freely, right? With any problems that we may be bound to or experiencing in our reality while we're woke, right? And so there could absolutely be a dilemma or a problem that we're experiencing or dealing with, whereas in the dream state, the solution comes and that question or that issue or that problem could be resolved while we're in the dream state, and the solution is realized during the dream state. And then we wake up and realize that we have the answer that we've been waiting for or that we needed for that problem. And so the other thing is, what was it? Self-awareness. Now, one of the benefits of a huge, actually, benefit of being attentive and really working with our dreams is we can tap into a deeper part of ourselves, a deeper part of our unconsciousness. And of course, there's been lots of research done around dreams where it's been proven that we're able to identify and also become more aware of who we are on a deeper level. What we see ourselves as while we're awake is just really the very beginning. Like it's just scratching the surface. It's the tip of the iceberg. The hugest part of who we are actually many times hidden. It's could be aspects of our shadow self. It's actually within and submerged and stuffed down into the subconscious. Have you ever saw that meme where you see the iceberg and there's just the very tip of it up above water? You saw that meme before? And then the meme also shows the whole picture. It shows what's showing above water and what's underneath the water, right? And as we look at the portion underneath the water, it's like more than 90% of that iceberg that's underwater. And this is a reflection of our true self, right? And the true reflection of our self-awareness of that true self as well. Because our subconscious is what houses all that is unconscious, including our memories. This could include our fears, our beliefs, our mindsets, all of that stuff that's operating unaware and unconsciously. And so our dreams actually provide, I'll say, an opportunity to connect with that part of ourselves, whereas otherwise we would not or could not. And many times it's those dreams where we wake up and we're like, okay, what was that? What was that? That was crazy. You ever had those kind of dreams where you wake up and you're like totally appalled or just confused, and it's really vivid and detailed, and sometimes seems like a very long dream that you wake up from, and it feels very instinctual when you wake up, like something like really just happened in real time, but you dreamt it though. Usually that's tapping us into that part of ourselves that's unconscious, that we don't understand, and that we're not aware of. And it's delivering some type of message to make us aware of it, whatever that is. And that's why we wake up with this desire to know more, to know what that was, and to understand it. It's almost like innately we know. But as we are sitting in our reality, in our conscious being, it perplexes us because it's still yet in the dark, you know. But a large part of working within our dreams is being open to it and understanding the importance of things like sleep as well. Sleep is very important. It's and we don't realize it many times how important sleep is, but sleep is definitely necessary as it relates to dreams. If for some reason we are deprived of sleep, it makes um, tapping into our dreams that much harder. Sleep is definitely important for optimal health and functioning, especially as it pertains to brain functions and brain maintenance. And one of the things that happens while we're asleep is there's the consolidating of memories and even recent events and experiences. It's almost like sorting through a file and filing things away in appropriate spaces. And those things are the recent events and experiences that we've had. And while we're sleeping, recent experiences are moved to more pertinent storage areas in our brain. And this also are things that we've just learned as well. And so sleeping is very vital even to learning. And there's also tissue repair that's happening while we're sleeping. And there's the repairs that's happening as it pertains to our brains, maintenance overall. So there's a function called the synaptic homeostasis, I believe it is, that actually sets the brain up to continue learning. There's a study that was done that actually revealed that while we're sleeping, there's this function that happens similar to garbage being carted away. And it's almost like a waste removal system that clears toxins. It's like a detox, I guess we can call it. And this function actually is said to actually prevent, in many ways, the onset of Alzheimer's. But overall, it was found in these studies that sleep is very critical and vital for our health, period. Overall, right? That was concluded with no shadow of a doubt. Not getting Enough sleep can cause obesity, diabetes, it can cause hormone irregularity, heart disease, high cholesterol, increased blood pressure, risk of stroke, a weakened immune system, rigid emotionality, and unethical behaviors like rudeness or inappropriate behaviors. Also, dishonesty. Wow, dishonesty? Really? It also can be a contributor to depression as well, and a lack of being able to discern or make like good judgments, and being quick to assume or jump to conclusions or consider things a threat that aren't really a threat. It's almost like an impairment to judgment overall. And then also, it causes us to be more prone to accidents. And then overall shortening of lifespan, just to sum that up. The negative impact on brain development during adolescence from lack of sleep can also add or worsen cases of what we have known to be the ADHD, that overactive hyperactivity. And it can also contribute to the aggressiveness of breast cancer. So, getting enough sleep is actually critical to our health, both for learning, not to mention what we're talking about today, dreams, and being able to understand them and work with them. What happens when we sleep is our conscious self disappears. It ceases to exist while we're asleep. And then when we reawaken, it reappears. The best way to describe it is like there's this mysterious black pit that we know nothing about, right? Aside from the experiences of dreams, which kind of causes this uncomfortableness to happen. And that's because there's what seems to be this, this mystery around dreaming. But the research that has been done has actually allowed us to see more and um, understand more about what's happening when this happens, when we tend to go into this, what seems to be like that black pit that we don't know anything about. And because of the research, we've been able to kind of decode and understand our dreams a little bit more and more deeply. Now, there's what we call levels of the mind, and there's a lot of changes that take place when we're awake and when we're asleep. And there's a lot of things that happen as far as levels of consciousness or depth of sleep, if I can explain it that way. Um, that first change that happens, it involves our consciousness. We go deeper into the levels of the mind. This is the level of the mind that we're not well acquainted with, right, while we're sleeping. But this is a quite active part of our mind. This is, according to the research that's been done, there's primarily four types of brain waves that's been identified and recorded and done research around, from the fastest to the slowest. And those levels are called the beta, the alpha, the theta, and the delta. And I guess these names came um, about through the study through Greek culture, because it's Greek language. And so, and the Greeks have been known to study the dreams, right? And so, and they were actually quite fascinated with dreams, as well as the Romans also. And so, going back to what we were talking about, that first level is beta waves, the first level we're going to talk about. And the beta waves are associated with the fast mental activity. And this is active external attention, like logical thinking, a sharp, focused mind, alertness, analytical problem solving, increased blood flow, metabolism. And these waves are present with fear, anger, anxiety, and worry, or we can just consider it higher stress levels, right? And this particular type of wave is measured at about 13 to 30 hertz. Okay. The next level of waves are alpha waves, and the alpha waves occur while we're awake, but not actively processing information. And these waves are associated with calmness, that feeling of ease. That's my favorite place to be, at ease. Daydreaming, creative visualization, introspection, and creativity. And they're like the bridge between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. And they help us to kind of look below the surface of our consciousness. So alpha brain waves are also important for learning information, and they aid mental coordination and resourcefulness as well. And when it comes to like the optimal processing, we need these waves, and we need to have enough of them going in conjunction with other waves in order for that optimal processing to happen. And our alpha waves measure in at about 8 to 12 hertz. And then we have the theta waves. Theta brain waves are equated with the subconscious, which is a repository of memories, sensations, and emotions. And these waves are slower and are associated with things like meditation or a heightened receptivity, inspiration or recall, or even things like hallucination and sleep. And the theta brain waves, predominantly in the lighter levels of sleep and dreaming. Sleep is where you'll find these waves most active, and it's considered REM. If you've ever heard of that, that stands for rapid eye movement. Although dreams can also occur in delta, theta waves play the key role in coordinating different areas of the brain, like gamma waves, which we've yet to talk about, but we will. So have you ever watched someone sleep, your child sleep, or even a pet? Have you ever watched a pet sleep? And in their sleep, you begin to see their eyes flickering and blinking very rapidly, right? That's the level of sleep that they're in. They're in the theta brain wave state. And for the theta waves, the measurement is at about 4 to 8 hertz. And then lastly is the delta. The delta waves occur in the lower part of the brain, which is the frontal lobe. And delta waves occur in the deepest level of sleep and represents the unconsciousness overall. Now, these waves are associated with things like empathy, um, thin boundaries and deep trance states, like hypnosis, I guess we could say. And they represent a sort of radar that seek out and receive information instinctually. And it coordinates us in time and space. So the delta waves measure in at about 5 to 3 hertz. Now, aside from these four main types of waves, researchers have recently identified a fifth type of that are related. And I refer to them in response to the theta waves, and they're called gamma brain waves. And the gamma brain waves are associated with integrated thoughts, high levels of information. And immediately what's coming to me is like channeling, right? High levels of information and perception, higher levels of insight and state of awareness. And this is like the latest discovery, right? With everything becoming more online recently, it makes sense that this is a recent discovery. And so gamma waves can induce the release of beta endorphins. And in concert with theta waves, gamma brain waves help to transmit information among different brain regions. And gamma waves register in at 30 plus hertz. So now that we understand the different levels of sleep and what happens during our sleep cycle. So when we fall asleep, we actually fall from this waking state of consciousness, which is the beta or the alpha, and we fall down to the theta and the delta. And throughout the night, we actually cycle back and forth from the lighter levels of sleep, which is theta, down to the deeper levels, which is the delta, and then back up, and then down, over and around again, right? We go back and forth, fluctuating between the two. But it's during that first part of the sleep cycle that we spend more time in the deep levels of sleep. It was thought before certain research that dreams occurred only during the lighter levels of sleep. But now it's known that the rapid eye movement, right? What we talked about, the REM sleep, which is the marker for dreams occurring, can happen during all stages of sleep, all phases. Is pure game for the REM or dreaming, as well as dreams with or without that rapid eye movement. And the rapid eye movement occurs while we're dreaming as our eyes are seemingly tracking what we're seeing and experiencing during our dreams. So it's almost like a translation of the dreams into the reality as our physical eyes are actually tracking or recording what's happening in the dream state. And so the dreams we tend to remember occurs more often during the lighter levels of sleep. Dreams can last for a range of about, when it comes to time, we're looking at anywhere from 4 to 27 minutes overall. And now the physical process of sleep, in addition to the change in our brain waves and consciousness, fundamentally, things tend to shift when we go to sleep, like our brain and our body chemicals. And one that many of us are probably very familiar with is melatonin, right? We know what that is because it's being sold on all around the world. And we produce more of it in the evening as the sun goes down because it helps us to induce sleep. And research has shown that melatonin also helps to kill cancer cells as well, just to put that in there. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you turn off any source of light while you're sleeping. Cell phones, TVs, iPads, computers. It's important to turn all of those things off because there's been a link that's been found between light exposure to night light during sleep cycles and higher incidences of cancer. And so turn those lights off, turn those phones off, turn everything off. And there's two changes that can help create a significant hallmark of sleep. One is neurons. They're turned off in our spinal cord, which helps to induce paralysis in our bodies. Because of this, we tend not to physically act out our dreams. But what's interesting is that research has shown that there is a malfunction in this bodily mechanism in those who chronically sleepwalk. At the same time, two brain chemicals that circulate while we're awake is norepinephrine and serotonin. They're turned off. And then another neurotransmitter, acetylcholine, is produced. Now, acetylcholine triggers and excites emotional, visual, and motor parts of our brains, which help to explain why some dreams are arousing dreams. You ever had an arousing dream? You don't have to share it. But our limbic system, which has to do with the emotions, is also fully activated while we're sleeping, resulting in our emotional being enhanced while we're dreaming. Added on to that, the cerebral cortex in the brain is also taped down. This is the part of the brain associated with high reasoning and thinking, which allows us to focus, make logical connections, and compare experiences with reality. And this is why dreams usually don't feel logical or unfold in a linear, logical fashion. It's also why it's beneficial to understand how our dreams work, how sleep relates, and how working with our dreams can actually be enriching. Now that you know that, you should actually have a better understanding of how your sleeping patterns and how your mind is affected during sleep, as opposed to how it's reacting while you're awake. Now, this knowledge definitely can be used while tapping into any type of dream work. And one of the things that we'll want to do while we're working with our dreams is to record them somehow, right? However that works for you. And so, there's a few common questions that come up about dreaming. There's actually quite a few, but I'm just going to choose a couple to address, and we'll just briefly discuss this couple that I've chosen. The first one is, does everybody dream? Technically, the normal function of the human body is to dream. Now, unless there's something that's abnormal about your brain, or there's some type of medicine that you're on that may be interfering with your dreaming, everyone typically has dreams, whether you remember them or not. It's something that is just a normal function of the body, the human body. And the other question was, if I'm dreaming, why don't I remember my dreams? And so this goes back to those different theta waves and levels of consciousness. We tend to remember our dreams only when our level of consciousness shifts while we're dreaming. For instance, say you're in the middle of sleep and you hear a noise, and that noise actually shifts your level of consciousness. Then you usually move in some type of way, or reposition or squirm a little bit before going back to sleep and sinking back into another level of consciousness while you're sleeping. Now, if for some reason we're sleeping too soundly, we may not even remember our dreams. If we're again not sleeping enough, if we're sleep deprived and not sleeping on a regular basis, it could be that we're in such a deep sleep that not a lot can disturb our sleep. And so being in that depth of sleep, there wouldn't be any types of traces of dreams when we wake up. So the depth of the sleep may interfere with your ability to remember dreams. Not that you're not dreaming, it's just that you're in such a deep sleep. It doesn't allow your brain to function at a level where your memory is able to tap into it. And it's said that when they did the research around dreams, like most people only remember 1% of their dreams anyway. And of course, there are those that have no interest at all in their dreams. So it couldn't, matter either way to those people. But for those of us who are definitely tapped in and who are interested in our dreams, those of us who are on the more creative side of who we tend to have a better sense of our memory as we're actually tapping into that part of our brain and actually doing, different exercises to connect with that part of our brain. We tend to actually remember our dreams more. And those who are more introspective are also able to remember their dreams more than those who aren't. And if you want to get into kind of like the scientific facts, researchers have conducted, research that shows that people who have a lower frequency theta brainwave in their frontal lobe are more likely to actually remember their dreams. Which is interesting to me because I think this is the part of the brain that I believe it taps into our receptivity and processing when we're talking about the frontal lobes. And then there's also a study that showed that people who tend to remember their dreams have a heightened blood flow in certain areas of the brain and are more aware of external stimuli. And like I said, there's several questions, but I'm only going to just choose a two, which I've done because I want to really allow us to get into the meat of working with our dreams. So now, have you ever wondered where dreams actually come from? Now, for those who have actually done work with dreams before, it's said that they actually have many different sources. And there's many different types of dreams as well. When we talk about where the dreams come from, how they are produced, or, talking about the origins of the dreams, we tend to think that all the dreams come from our minds, from our unconscious, and so it's been proven that that's not necessarily true. There's additional possible sources of our dreams. And there's also different types of dreams that we have as well. And so we'll actually discuss that here in a moment. And it's important for us to know this because this is going to help interpret and understand the dreams. And so, first of all, pointing out that dreams can actually come from various possible sources, okay? Number one, our unconscious. That's the source of many of our dreams, but not necessarily most of them, just many of them. As we've already discussed, one of the functions of sleep has to do with learning. It prepares us to be able to even continue learning. And while we're asleep, we're actually consolidating and moving things to a more permanent storage is what's happening while we're asleep. And when I say things, I mean our recent activities or things that we've recently learned or discovered. So this file maintenance is what we'll call this process. This file maintenance of our recent activity often triggers dreams. And if you'll remember that unconsciously, what's happening is we're trying to bring the mind into balance, and we're seeking to bring the conscious awareness back into balance as it recognizes any fears or wishes, any outdated modes of thinking or being, any unrecognized patterns or possibilities, mental chores, old self-defeating, ways, patterns, or limiting issues. Those types of things will usually be offered up in a form of a dream because our subconscious is trying to bring it into balance and bring it into our awareness. Even those dreams that are intuitive or psychic in nature will likely stem from the unconscious at times. And this is in the delta brain waves of our unconsciousness. And it's serving a purpose as it acts as a radar. And it's almost like sussing out the environment in order to pull in relevant or important information. So the unconscious is actually viewed as one of the main sources of dreams. Not most, but one of the main ones. And some people are going to be a little freaked out at this next part. But yes, other people and beings, and I'm going to say that again, other people and beings can be a source of our dreams. That includes living people, those who have passed on, those who've lost loved ones. It also includes spiritual beings like guides, angels, higher self, and whatever else you want to add to that list, right? Any type of being, including animals, both living or passed on. Any of these can create some of our dreams. So these types of dreams that usually stem from others will be those in which communication usually takes place. In certain circumstances, there are those dream scenarios that could be triggered by others, even if they don't include communication or some type of message. But generally, other people or beings or animals, could actually be giving us a dream. Usually, it's while we're actually sleeping that our loved ones who've passed on, including like animals, will be able to actually speak with us or visit us. And when we're awake, these attempts to communicate are usually things that we tend to tune out unconsciously. Our awareness is not keen to these things or to the presence of someone trying to actually communicate with us energetically or even spiritually. However, there are those who are actually consciously aware of them while they're awake. While we're asleep, it's almost like we're in a more porous state of consciousness, which makes us more receptive to this type of communication and or visitation. Our actual lives can also be a source of our dreams. What that means is that those who are still living and part of our present lives, like those who we're connected with and who we communicate with on a regular, um, can, present dreams to us, aka friends, family, significant others, whatever that means, work people, whatever. We can actually carry on a two-way conversation while we're sleeping. Have you ever had one of those dreams where you felt like you were talking to someone that you knew in the dream? Now, after that dream, when you woke up, or shortly after that dream, did you reach out to that person and share that dream with them? And did that other person then confirm having that same type of dream that same night? If this was the case, which I can personally say that I've had instances just like that, a similar situation, I can attest that this is definitely true. And if that's true for you and this is the case, then you are likely talking to each other in the dream state, actually communicating telepathically during the dream state. And yes, people can actually communicate with each other in the dream state in a less direct way as well. There are actually what people will call dream groups that actually work around dreams in this way, where they'll have dreams for like a certain purpose or certain members of that group. And sometimes they'll turn out to be identical dreams that are being had by the members of the group on the same night. They call these mutual dreaming, or they call it meeting dreams, or I think meshing dreams is another one. There's theories about virtual or alternate realities in which these shared dreams exist. But just in a regular way of understanding, this could definitely reveal the closeness and the intertwined changes that people who have had these shared similar dreams. And there are other instances where people would have a dream of maybe a friend or a family member that's been ill. And then during the dream, maybe you were given information about the illness and were supposed to share that with that friend. That would be kind of like a shared dream as well. It would actually just be a dream that you specifically had about someone else, but it's still a dream that derived from others, whether living or someone that's passed on, whether it's human or whether it's an animal or some other being. And so this is one of the dreams that many times we overlook and just chop up as coincidence. But it's definitely one of the sources of the dreams that we have. And then we also have the physical conditions or external conditions that cause dreams. And if you'll remember, the condition of our bodies while we're sleeping can actually be a source of the reason why we're dreaming. For instance, maybe you have to use the restroom or your bladder is full, right? Or your body's response to like the overall temperature being too high or too low in the space where you're sleeping. Or maybe you have a fever at the moment and you're experiencing a bit of uncomfort while you're sleeping. Or maybe there's some discomfort within your stomach that's causing you to feel a bit uncomfortable during the dream, right? And so an example would be like you could have a dream where you're actually trying to, let's see, maybe trying to travel through deep snow in Siberia. I don't know. And your body is shivering, from the excessive cold, and you're looking for shelter, right? And then you wake up and find that for some reason you're actually very cold in your body and you're actually shivering in real time, and the temperature in your bedroom is quite chilly. Or maybe you had a dream where you were exercising and you pulled a muscle exercising while doing the exercises, right? Maybe you pulled a muscle in your calf and then you woke up to discover that your leg really was hurting. Your calf really did have like a cramp in it, right? And so dreams do stem from our physical conditions many times in our physical bodies. And you could also have a dream or dreams that are telling us about our health issues. And as I stated before, this is usually one that's quite big. We could be having dreams about our health issues, even ones that we don't even realize that we have. And our dreams could be kind of revelatory in that way. So it doesn't have to be significant. It could be mundane. It could be, something very big, and our bodies can actually be the source of some of our dreams, and it's trying to communicate it to us. As far as external conditions, we're talking about the conditions like in our bedroom or the area where we're sleeping, in the house or outside. Those can be sources of our dreams as well, which can include like noises or noisiness, weather, smoke, or fire, or certain unpleasant situations. Um, for instance, like on a warm night, we usually sleep with our windows cracked open. You know, Imagine two cats on a hot night, in their catty mood, their feistiness, and they're flashing on each other and wanting to fight. And so they get into this cat fight. While you're dreaming, you hear the noise, you know, of the screeching and the scratching and the yelling and the meowing and the fighting and the hollering, from the cats that are interacting with each other, which can be very disturbing sounds if you've ever heard that sound of two cats getting into it. And so you might find yourself dreaming about a cat or cats, plural. So in that case, the external source of your dream would be that the cats that you hear outside, even though you're dreaming, right? This noise has pulled this dream out because of what you're hearing. And if the noise gets loud enough to disturb your sleep, then you're awakened by them. But before that happens, the external situation is abducted into the dream, creating the actual dream. And then we have higher soul awareness. And our higher soul awareness and even high level spiritual beings can be the source of some of our dreams. And this would mean being told or being taught something in a dream that can extend to being worked on in some type of way in real life. Like something to do with spiritual matters. There are those who feel that spiritual teachings and deep work often take place in deep levels of sleep. Although we may not always remember those dream experiences, they still do take place and happen on a soul level. And I feel like I definitely can resonate with this one too, as well as the other ones, because it's happened for me. I've had times where I've sensed working on some deep level within my dream. And I don't exactly remember what it is when I wake up, but there's this feeling when I awake from the dream, that there's something that transpired on a deep level spiritually, and I can feel it. There's the innate feeling that something was transpired and I'm holding it and it's active, from the dream. So we can definitely receive communications and have this kind of dream content from our higher soul awareness and from spiritual beings that we remember as well. I think it's amazing that we can even just have that type of resource or interaction while we're here in this time, in this space, that we could actually work within ourselves in this way, in the dreamscape. It would be beneficial on a personal and a spiritual level as it pertains to our growth. That's just my opinion. One thing I will say, just to add a little comic humor to this part of talking about experiences, creating our dreams. One of the dreams that I'm always aware of, um, and it sets me on alert when I'm dreaming, is being in the bathroom. Being in the bathroom, right? Anybody else had that dream? Because if you're not careful, there's such a fine line between the reality. And remember, I said how while we're in the REM, right? That part of the dreaming, when that happens, like, and our eyes flicker because our eyes are the indication of recording everything that's happening in the dream. And so there's that very close correlation, or there's the thin veil between what's happening in the dream and our bodies responding outside of the dream, what's happening in our outer body as well. And as far as being in the bathroom or the restroom and dreaming that you're, like, for instance, relieving yourself, right? And you have to be careful. Your body can actually mistake that you are actually being realistically in the bathroom in real life, not just in the dream. And your body can be tricked into believing that, especially if your bladder's full and it needs to be relieved, there's a sense of your body being in conjunction with the dream. And so you may find yourself just releasing your bowels in your dream because it just feels real. Wherever you're sleeping, in your bed, right? Wherever you are, if you're not careful. And for me, that's been one of the red flag dreams. But, you know, just thinking of the types of dreams that we can have. And I thought I'd just add that as a little comic relief. So this will, be part one of our dreams video. The next part, we're going to go into interpreting dreams, and we're going to look at some procedures that we can actually use in how to interpret the dreams that we're having. So if you like this discussion about dreams, go ahead and check out our next video on dreams. It should be not too far from this one. And I do thank you for watching. Go ahead and like, share, comment if you relate or you want to share part of your dream experience. If you have something you want to add to this, definitely feel free to do that. Also, if you're new here, subscribe, hit the bell so that you will be notified when new videos are released. And thank you for allowing me to speak into your life, for I do not take it lightly. All right. Thank you for stopping by. See you next time.